that seals fate, the end of every heart. I'm no villain nor hero.
What truly happens in those final moments? I am Lucius Eternus, an angel of death, and today I'll unveil the last journey of three remarkable souls. See through my eyes as we witness the final hours of Leonidas, Yamamoto Kansuke, and Gilles the Rais. Where courage meets despair. What does death whisper to those it touches? How does a final breath shape the legacy of a life? Join me to explore how these heroes and villains face their fate and prepare to see death as you've never seen it before. Story 1. Leonidas and the 300 Spartans. Greece, 480 BC. Leonidas, king of Sparta, receives news that the Persians see wars with fury. Xerxes, leading an army of hundreds of thousands, threatens to destroy everything. For Leonidas, the decision is made. Thermopylae, a narrow passage, will be the place where he and his 300 Spartans will make their last stand. Not to win, but to buy time and inspire all of Greece to resist. Alongside his men, Leonidas is more than a king, he's a brother in arms. I was there, watching the depth of that moment. Their spears trembled in their hands, not with fear, but with the weight of honor. As they left Sparta, words were not needed, the silence before a battle already accepted, the yearning that burns in their families' eyes. The march to Thermopylae was under a scorching sun, each step was a constant drumbeat of courage against despair. That path was more than a journey, it was a trail to eternity. Leonidas, leading his army, kept his expression calm, but his gaze was firm, as one who already glimpsed death on the horizon, preparing to meet it. Each man knew that Thermopylae would be their tomb, but also their legacy. And there, in that march, I saw how humanity can be grand amidst despair. They were ready to face whatever came, knowing their sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. As they crossed the valley that led to the pass, the horizon was not just a battlefield, but a gateway to history. Death waited, patient, but these men, led by Leonidas, marched not to defeat, but to immortal honor. The pass of Thermopylae becomes a battlefield of courage and sacrifice. Xerxes hurls human waves, and the Spartans resist as if they were part of the land itself. I watched closely, feeling the energy pulse between life and death, courage and sacrifice. But in that battle, something else happened. While the Persians attacked and the Spartans repelled their advances, Leonidas saw what only he could see. Spectral shadows appeared on the battlefield. They weren't just vague figures, they were ancient warriors, legendary Spartan kings who had died with honor. They seemed to walk among the Spartans, like a silent presence wrapped in a pale glow, their faces marked by battle but with a serenity that only those who died gloriously knew. Leonidas, in the midst of chaos, felt these presences around him, like an invisible force. In moments of despair, when exhaustion began to weigh down, he felt the cold hands of his ancestors on his shoulder, whispering without words, transmitting courage and resilience. And he, absorbing that force, kept fighting, as if the ghosts of the ancient Spartan warriors marched alongside the 300, strengthening their spears and hardening their hearts. These spectral warriors never intervened directly. They merely observed, as if judging the courage of the living, and in crucial moments, Leonidas saw the eyes of a king from the past lock onto his, as if passing on the honor of 1,000 battles. The fight continued, the 300 became a living wall, and their sacrifice was a continuation of an eternal lineage of warriors who never retreated, not even in the face of death. I, Lucius, saw how death was within reach of all the warriors on that field. But for these men, it wasn't an end, it was a reunion. Their sacrifice wasn't just a mortal act, but a union with all those who had come before. And realizing this, Leonidas knew that even if they fell, they would never be alone. The sun rises slowly, unveiling the betrayal. I stand among other angels of death, watching as the Spartan warriors are surrounded. The battle becomes a storm of steel and screams, and their spirits are carried away like leaves in the wind. Leonidas remains standing, but his defiance comes with wounds that tear through his body. A spear pierces his thigh, warm blood pulses out. He tastes the sharp edge of pain as a sword slices his shoulder, forcing him to grip his spear with faltering strength. Every breath sears like fire. The ground of Thermopylae turns into a field of blood and steel. And yet, he stands firm. Even as his legs tremble, he refuses to fall until a blade cuts deep into his abdomen. Falling to his knees, he fights to stay awake as a crimson mist covers his vision. His body weakens, but his spirit remains unyielding. Beside him, I see the silver thread that still binds him to life, thin but vibrant. Leonidas raises his eyes to meet mine. There is pain, but also peace. With a single, steady motion, I sever the thread that tethers him to his body. You fought for something greater than life itself, Leonidas, I say, my voice a whisper only he can hear. His eyes ignite with one final flicker of pride before he exhales a breath that is both a farewell and a rebirth. His spirit rises above the battlefield, leaving behind not just a wounded body but an undying legend. Thermopylae will not be a grave for Leonidas and his 300. It will be the echo of courage that transcends time, a flame that will never die. Story 2. Yamamoto Kansuke, the samurai strategist. It's 1561, and Japan is at war. The Battle of Kawanakajima rages as two powerful clans, Takeda and Yasuji, vie for control over Shinano province. Yamamoto Kansuke, trusted strategist of the Takeda, stands at the center of this conflict. For the fourth time, these clans clash in Kawanakajima, tension mounting with every strike of steel. I, Lucius Eternus, watch as Kansuke takes command. Morning mist covers the battlefield, and Kansuke senses the enemy closing in, threatening to encircle them. The battle, once in his grasp, slips away like sand through his fingers. As swords clatter and cries of warriors pierce the air, Kansuke understands that the fate of his clan rests on this fight. He knows that if they fall, the Takeda will crumble. Soldiers under his command place their faith in him, trusting he will either lead them to victory or grant them an honorable death. Amid the swirling chaos, I feel the delicate thread between life and death tremble around him. Kansuke sees his situation grow more dire, yet fear doesn't touch him. His focus is unshakable on the legacy of his clan, on protecting its honor. If we must fall, he resolves, let it be with courage. And so, Kansuke prepares for his final move, a sacrifice that could save his leader and define the fate of his people. The battle surges on, fierce and relentless. But as Kansuke advances, something beyond war emerges. In the midst of chaos, he sees what no one else can. A colossal creature hovers over the field, a spectral dragon, its eyes burning like two red flames. This is no mere symbol, it is the spirit of the Takeda clan, a supernatural force awakened by the bloodshed. I watch closely, witnessing Kansuke become more than human, entwined with a power greater than life itself. The dragon hovers over the battlefield, a mass of pure energy, its immense shadow cast over warriors below. Kansuke feels its fiery gaze upon him, not as a threat, but as a guide. He connects deeply with this presence, feeling the heat of the dragon flood his soul, fueling his resolve. Every step, every slash of his blade is guided by an almost divine vision. The dragon communicates through images and sensations, charting a path of light through the turmoil. Eyes burning with purpose, Kansuke charges the enemy with a precision beyond human limits. His sword slices through the air, striking true as if the dragon itself were directing his hand. Yasuji soldiers see him as a force unstoppable, as if possessed by something greater than any man. The dragon breathes a fierce energy through Kansuke, and he moves like an extension of its spirit, cutting through the battlefield and creating a distraction impossible to ignore. And while all of this unfolds, I sense Kansuke's silver thread vibrate like never before. He walks the razor's edge between life and death, driven by something far greater than the strength of a mere warrior, the spirit of a legend fighting for his clan's destiny, blessed and fueled by the fury of a dragon. Wounded but unwavering, Kansuke fights on, every move driven by the spirit of a true warrior. Blades close in like shadows, a sword slashes his leg, a spear tears his side, and a knife digs deep into his back. But he doesn't stop. Blood mixes with the mud, his body screams for rest, but his resolve to protect Takeda Shingen and secure his escape burns brighter than any pain. As his strength fades and breath grows heavy, Kansuke realizes his sacrifice has fulfilled its purpose. Kneeling, he clutches his tanto, the blade glinting with honor. Without hesitation, he commits seppuku, an act of ultimate courage. I, Lucius Eternus, stand by his side as his spirit is released, leaving no agony on his face, only calm. Pride radiates from his eyes, a man who lived and died with purpose. His spirit rises on the battlefield, embraced by a peace as soft as a flickering flame. True strength isn't living without fear, but facing it and fighting for something greater. Kansuke died so others could live, sacrificing himself to preserve his honor and clan. In the end, he found more than death. He found eternity, a legacy left at the cost of his life. Story 3. Gilles de Rais, hero and villain. Gilles de Rais was a force on the battlefield, a knight of great skill and unwavering courage, always by the side of Joan of Arc, fighting for France during the 100 Years' War. His feats were legendary, an unrelenting warrior with an intimidating gaze and loyalty to his homeland. I, Lucius Eternus, was there, witnessing the lethal precision of his sword. Gilles embodied hope and strength, a beacon guiding those around him. In the midst of clashing steel, cries of war, and the scent of gunpowder, he advanced without hesitation, as if death couldn't touch him. His eyes were always fixed on his enemies, his blade striking true, and his presence felt almost superhuman. But even then, amid the glory and applause, I sensed an unease in his soul, a seed of darkness that pulsed behind his pride and ambition. While the country celebrated Gilles as a living legend, there was a shadow growing within, like the creeping darkness of a sunset. And I, Lucius Eternus, knew that a soul as bright as Gilles could either illuminate the world or consume it entirely. As he fought for justice and honor, something deeper stirred, something that would eventually break free. And so, the hero of France walked toward his fate, unaware that darkness followed closely behind. After the war, in search of something to revive his lost glory, Gilles discovered an ancient armor in an abandoned battlefield, hidden in a forgotten cave, radiating an aura of mystery and power. It seemed left as an offering, as if destiny had prepared it for him. The armor shone with a supernatural light, and when Gilles touched it, a shiver ran down his spine, like he was welcomed by something dark and ancient. I, Lucius Eternus, could feel the corrupted spirit of that armor stirring in the spiritual realm, like an entity longing for a new host. The moment he wore the armor was like sealing a silent pact, the cold metal pressed against his flesh, and along with it, something evil seeped into his soul. The malevolent presence of the armor didn't just awaken hidden desires, it fed them. In the spiritual realm, I saw shadows gathering around Gilles, as if the evil carried by the armor had taken root within him, taking control. He began to have visions, dark figures whispering to him, images of torture and death that felt as real as his own breath. Before long, these visions turned into actions. Gilles started abducting children from nearby villages, luring them to his castle, where no one dared question his intentions. Within those dark halls, he performed heinous acts, bloody rituals where his victims were tortured as he saw ever greater power, driven by the voices of the armor. He used pain as fuel, committing cruel, depraved sacrifices that stained the ground with blood and shattered the human spirit. And I, Lucius, saw how each vile act fed the spiritual evil surrounding him, making him less human with every passing day. Gilles' soul twisted, like a flame turning into black smoke, consumed by the whispers of malevolence. It was not merely the lust for power driving him, it was the influence of the armor, a force that corrupted his will and pushed him to the very brink of the abyss, from which there would be no return. The fall of Gilles de Rais was as dramatic as his once heroic past. When his crimes were finally uncovered, the horrific acts stunned all of France. The hero who once fought beside Joan of Arc had now become a monster in the eyes of the world. I, Lucius Eternus, watched this transformation unfold, his arrest, trial, and the heavy burden of his deeds crashing down like invisible chains. Condemned for murder, torture, and dark rituals, Gilles' name was dragged into the darkness he himself had created. During the trial, a brief moment shattered his mask of cruelty. The cursed armor, the one that led him into darkness, was removed, and for an instant, Gilles stood stripped of his corrupt power. He felt regret like a cold blade slicing through his soul, but his actions had already forged an unbridgeable abyss. As the flames engulf Gilles de Rais, the heat begins to melt the essence of his humanity. The first touch of fire blisters his skin, quickly turning flesh to blackened charcoal. He screams, but smoke fills his lungs, silencing him with a violent cough, his body writhing in pain. The fire devours him inch by inch, his hair ignites, his skin shrinks, and his clothes melt into his burning flesh. His muscles spasm as nerves are seared, and the acrid smell of burning flesh fills the air. The heat intensifies, and the flames engulf his body entirely, dancing hungrily over every limb, reducing muscle to ash, bone to brittle shards. His eyes, wide with pain and terror, dry and crack as they are consumed by the fire. Agony forces every inch of his soul to the surface, struggling between the man he once was and the darkness he has embraced. And in those final moments, as his body crumbles into a pile of ash and smoldering remains, his soul struggles between the guilt of a fallen hero and the twisted satisfaction of a life given over to evil. The flames, relentless, erase any trace of nobility, leaving only the marks of his deeds, rising with the smoke into the sky. Even the greatest of heroes can lose their way when purpose and honor are replaced by emptiness and a thirst for power. The downfall of Gilles serves as a reminder that when the light fades, darkness finds its path. And one day, my friend, we shall meet again. On the day of your death.
In shadows I walk. I've been here from the start. I am the hand that seals fate, the end of every heart. I'm no villain nor hero. I'm the peace amidst the pain, the angel who comes, who takes, yet offers love again.